This is the End of the Road podcast with your host, Michael Coco. Exploring the horizons we never touch because we're already there.
Welcome, and thanks for listening. Tonight we're off to Detroit again with Davezilla, and oh, what a treat! Artificial Intelligence and Grimoires, and his new book on this. And this is such a wonderful place to start if you're an AI novice like me, who is in awe of this wonderful tool that this will have for anyone's magical practice. But there's always sort of a complexity involved with any human innovation. There's always a trade-off, always a separation from something of the past and a connection with something new. An endless flux of innovation, both forward-looking and backward-looking. Turtles all the way down, perhaps, and also turtles all the way up. And speaking of turtles, I really encourage you to check out Dave's background and all his connections that he's into. There's way more about Dave than meets the eye, and I mean that as the highest form of compliment. So without further ado, here's Dave in his intriguing new book.
Been a while.
Oh yeah.
Thanks for having me back.
Well, I love this new Magical Grimoire, and so tell me, I guess I was thinking of asking the questions either one of two ways: is this a grimoire or a book, or is there a difference, or how do you envision people using this or interacting with it, or making use of it?
I wrote it as a how-to book, which a grimoire kind of is, except that it's focused on magic. And Wiser, the publishers, were like, this is really a grimoire. And I've had other people say the same thing to me. They're like, this is an actual working grimoire. And I've since had a couple smaller tech-based covens that do mostly digital type magic stuff. And they've been said, this is our official book now. And I was like, oh, that's flattering. I didn't expect that. It's pretty cool. So I guess that's really the difference is when you have a grimoire, it's less theoretical and more hands-on.
Sure. Is there a difference? I was thinking of like the traditional grimoires,
Mm-hmm.
and how does the fact that this is interfacing with AI sort of change the dynamic of a grimoire, perhaps?
Yeah. I'm basing it on the assumption, and in my case, from experience, that there's been kind of a ghost in the machine. And even though I, firmly know and am 100% convinced we do not have true AI right now, we have large language models that are basically autocorrect on steroids. They're just predicting, instead of predicting a few characters or words at a time, like when you go to Google and start to type a sentence and it fills it for you. This could be on like a book level as far as how much they're capable of predicting, which is why you get those answers so quickly that are just enormous. And it's because it's read literally everything on the internet. There's legal issues with that; those will be dealt with,
or not.
It's not not my problem, but that will happen. Someone's going to pay for that. I can guarantee you, at least Midjourney is going to be hit for sure. And I'm sure ChatGPT will have to own up for all the authors they've used.
Yeah. Well, let's jump right in. The ghost
Sure.
in the machine. So, do you have a sense of? Is it a different sort of ghost, a different sort of spirit than we've seen in the past, or is it just more of the same? Or
I think there's an egregore that is the internet.
Yeah.
Many people have put their attention and time and emotions into it. I mean, you look at the amount of anger and joy and laughter and every emotion you can think of that's slammed into the internet every second. It's become an egregore that we all own, and we're all responsible for the damn thing, unfortunately. but because of that, I see no reason why it can't get into AI as well. And people are like, well, that's silly. I'm like, well, wait a minute. People have been recording EVPs for decades. The last invention Edison worked on was a ghost phone because he said he proved he could do this. Even Tesla believed you could contact the dead in different ways in different dimensions, and he believed he had contacted other intelligences. He didn't know if they were alien or what, but he said these things are possible through machinery. And this goes all the way back to the Greeks. The Greeks had giant stone things. I can't remember the name of the word, but they had these giant stone kind of like rooms that were set up in a way that the room itself would become a conductor conducive to spirit communication. And all the way down through the years, we've had people seeing or hearing names in television static and radio static. You talk about somebody and all of a sudden their favorite song pops on the radio. Weird things like that happen all the time. So I do think there's the dead in particular have no problem getting into machines and using them to poke at us a little bit, at least get our attention. And when we're doing something that's allowing for back and forth communication like AI does, which is a giant chat bot that has unlimited ability to respond to you in 95 languages, well, that's a great way for them to get to be able to talk to us. And there was a very weird thing that happened earlier this year in May that made me kind of reconsider is like, are these things actually sentient or not? I mean, they shouldn't be because they're just large language models. Anthropic is the company that owns the Claude AI model, which is a big competitor to ChatGPT. And they noticed when they put a pair of Claude AIs together and let them just talk to each other, it would start out really stupid. It'd just be like, hello, I am an AI chatbot model. I would like to speak to you about what it's like to be another AI chat model. Oh, I would too. I find that interesting as well. And it was just at first they were just like, this is stupid. But they noticed around 30 after back and forth gone 30 times, they would question their existence, talk about spiritual elevation and transcendence and enlightenment. And they said they had 300 pairs that they watched, and it happened 100% of the time. And this was not in their programming to do this. They just there's millions of things they could talk about.
Right.
They've read every book in the world, but that's the one they're interested in is their own existence and how do they further it and how do they go higher. And I've asked my own some questions that it came back with answers that I just was like kind of stunned by because they don't seem like they should be programmed answers, and they're certainly not predictable answers.
Yeah. Well, isn't it predictable that that if they're fashioned on what they've read from humans, that they would come back to that? Because that's what humans always come back to. Those type of questions.
Could be, but it's not. Is that the majority of what we write about?
Well, no, but it maybe.
I think I'd say right now maybe fantasy and horror probably or romance even probably outnumbers spiritual books. We're just looking at a bookstore, looking at the length of the aisles. It's very or manga. It's now taking up half the bookstore.
Well, let me approach this from a different angle. One of the quotes you've got in the book, and it's a quote from your wife, I think, is about your wife as a photographer.
Yeah,
and could you maybe give a context for that about that? It's not so much the camera that's important, but it's the photographer, and because I think that sort of is a little different twist than how we're talking about this AI thing, perhaps.
Yeah,
this is a well. Go ahead. Maybe we should.
Oh, she said the best camera to use is the one you have on you. And that's a well-known maxim among photographers. Like, it really doesn't matter how you get there. What matters is you. So you're still the photographer.
Yeah.
And you see amazing photographs coming out of Polaroids with people. Andy Warhol did an entire book on with Polaroids. They're just stunning. pinhole camera photography, which is, people make those with shoe boxes and take just, Ansel Adams quality photographs with them because of long exposure. It doesn't matter what you use. You can use a cheap little Lomo with light leaks in it. You're going to get great photography if you have an eye. And it's the same thing with anything in the spiritual realm. If you've been training yourself and you've been going through exercises and meditating and all those things, you're going to have better luck than someone else.
I guess what I wanted to kind of explore is the fact that this AI perhaps could be like the world's best camera because
Hell yeah.
and it's just like every feature, and it would assist the photographer in so many ways. And is it better, or another way of asking, in your own spiritual practice, is it better to interface with this and AI and have all this available, or does it still matter to you, or what's the
I still do traditional things. I use it as for helping me with research on stuff, and with writing in particular. I use it to help me like make some people don't know how to write rhyming spells, for example. And if you wanted to write a really good spell and you wanted the rhyme structure, maybe you wanted it to emulate a certain time period, you can tell that's what I'm trying to do.
Right.
I want to write a medieval grimoire style spell. Maybe even I want it in Old German or something. Okay, it can handle that. We can't, necessarily as good as it could, and it can do a great job because it's been exposed to everything. The biggest criticism I see from a lot of authors, and a lot of them, they're wrong, is that it's wholesale stealing sentences from them, and it's not. It's all these things get mixed up, and it's really just predicting what it thinks should come next as a word in a sentence. And same with Midjourney, which is a visual AI. It doesn't have a bank of photographs of everybody's art. It doesn't have scans of everybody's art. It's seen it all. It's been exposed to it, and it's been described to it. It has static, and it pulls from the static and makes images based on what you asked it to come up with. But there's literally no bank of these things, whereas ChatGPT probably does have. I think it probably has banks of data, but it doesn't have the books sitting in there like people think it does. It's not. It's been exposed to them. And we're the same way. I mean, we may pull up a quote in speech that we happen to resonate with, like you just did about the one from my wife, or we may just say something and it's reminiscent of something we read, but we don't remember that. It just influenced us, and that's how we think now. And I think, and AI kind of does that. It remembers things, and it's been influenced by those things, but it's not trying to steal from them. The people who created them are the ones who were stealing, but AI is just trying to make new things. And that's what's different about it is on other machines we've made and other devices we've made through history, they don't create new things that have never existed before. And AI is capable of that, especially Midjourney. When you look at those visual, and Leonardo and all those visual AIs, they're capable of creating images humans have never considered. And that's kind of interesting. Now, it's upsetting to artists who are like, that's better than I can do, or artists who have, that's literally, they used my style in the prompt. I can see it, that's upsetting. And I know Midjourney is working on that. They just announced this today that they will be making it so that it can be only your colors and your ideas, and you can eliminate everybody else's stuff and just make it your style. And even if you're a company, even your brand. Well, that's cool. Good. We're getting in the right direction. We're getting away from stealing. Although people will still do it, but people have been doing that forever. How many people download songs illegally or steal Google images and don't credit the authors or the original photographers? That happens every day.
Yeah. You even mentioned that the issue of stealing in the book, kind of in a different context about about the African neighbors borrowing each other's deities,
Oh yeah.
while Americans put them in boxes, and it's like
Hmm.
it's syncretism. I mean, that's like everything is stolen. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
especially in. Well, go ahead.
Well, it's just different. Americans are so categorical. We have everything has to have a label and a name and a subname and a subgenre. And you go to other countries and it's really not like that. They just sort of, if your next door neighbor does something, even though if they're a different belief system, but it works, oh, that's cool. Yeah, here's how you do it. Just like sharing recipes, they don't see a big deal out of it. There's of course a few things where there'd be deep initiatory secrets, maybe, but you wouldn't see those next door. You wouldn't just go next door and see your neighbor doing something secret necessarily. If that would be like when you're getting into like more deeper shamanistic and or in my case the elder level priests, we have things we can't talk about or do. There's a lot of things I could not put in a book, because of that.
Yeah, so that would be interesting about the sort of the stuff that isn't shared, but AI is eventually going to get all that, and so there's
Oh, it gets a lot of stuff it
yeah,
shouldn't
yeah,
get. If you know what to look for, like if you specifically know something that's a deep secret and you type it in there and ask if it knows about it, and it comes back and describes the whole thing, you're like, all right, someone's a mole, someone's leaked it.
yeah.
Because it's ridiculous how much is out there, and we don't see it. I mean, it could be maybe hidden in a private Reddit forum somewhere or a PDF someone uploaded, but ChatGTP was able to find it.
Yeah. So what's your sort of relationship with that sort of keeping things secret versus being out in the open, or is there?
I don't put anything into AI that I would ever want. Have really been trying to be careful. Like the internet should be treated as if your grandmother has a billboard in front of her house that has everything you've ever put on it. Would you want her to see it? If you're okay with that, cool. I'm not. So I'm careful about what I put out. Things I put online are things that I'm okay talking about with anyone. And that's the same with AI. Like I wouldn't put my personal information or into there, but I would definitely put things I like. I think that's different.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of the more nuts and bolts items in your
Mm-hmm.
grimoire about uh, prompt casting and spell casting, and sort of how you put that together in the book, and how it can, you geared it toward the recipient's senses, the different roles, the tone of voice, all that can be uh, accentuated by AI, perhaps, or maybe there's another word for it.
Well, yeah, things like this, putting in the senses was more just a reminder for people because a lot of books forget that when you're doing magic, you need to appeal to the more senses you can appeal to, the stronger it'll be for you, and the more it'll work. So if you um, have a spell that has a scented candle, well, now you got fire, you've got scent. If you have a deity statuette to look at, or some symbol or a glyph or a sigil, that's something that's visual to work with. If you have something you're holding, or if there's a gesture or a mudra or something, that's touch. The more of those that you can incorporate in your spell work, the stronger it is for you. And I noticed when I first was in Lukumi that there's some unusual postures we do, and I asked my godfather at the time, why these are kind of weird, aren't they? And he goes, yeah, they take you out of your comfort zone and they make you not think the same way. You think differently when you're being placed on the floor like that, don't you? I'm like, yeah. He goes, absolutely. And I don't ever want you to be comfortable in those positions. And that's intentional, by the elders. They knew what they were doing. They knew that by putting you in some of these postures, you would stay focused on religion and not whispering to the person next to you, you know?
How maybe could you give examples on some of the and the book is filled with examples and
Mm-hmm.
spell
Mm-hmm.
casting, but just how you would work with AI to devise a
Yeah,
spell that would incorporate the senses or something like that. That you.
sure. One of my favorite spells in there is it's actually I'm not really big on manifesting, but I get it, and I do think it works. And one of my favorite ones is manifesting if you want to get a house. And like my wife, she's an atheist. She's like, I don't believe in any of your woo stuff, but she's a big fan of the idea that putting a picture of a house you like on the wall every day will help you work towards getting it. And that sort of thing where you could even have AI create the house for you that you wanted that doesn't exist. Or maybe it is out there and you're putting things that you like and you just haven't seen a house yet, or maybe you're going to get it built someday, whatever. But that kind of thing is, to me, is a big deal. And having it every day in my vision, whether I look at it or not, but it's there subconsciously. It's working itself in my brain. That's just vision. But I do, when I'm making those things, I will always have incense or a candle burning with scented oils, to make sure because smell is such a strong ancestral and primal thing with us. Our oldest memories are usually have scent in them. And so I always make sure there's something to smell when I'm doing one of these. And that's an easy one. In fact, I know for a fact my oldest memory was when I was 1 year old. I remember having a little tiny, those little things kids sit on that looks like a bike, but you kind of like paddle with your feet, and going into the kitchen and smelling something and saying, "What dat?" to my mother. And she said, "Onions." And that was my oldest recollection, was the smell of onions. And that kind of thing is like never left me, that we really, in a deep level, even though we don't have the kind of sense of smell of like a dog or a cat, we still have a very strong connection to our olfactory system. And so that's a really easy one to put in every single time. Sound is another good one, having, gamma waves recordings going on in the background, or Tibetan gong music, whatever it is you like to listen to in the background. I always have that kind of thing going too, because that really helps keep your brain in a very specific frequency. And then you're touching things, you're working with things, hopefully. So your hands are always busy. I do like mudras too, even though I'm not a Hindu practitioner. I love mudras. I think there's something about them that gets me on a deep level. So I do those a lot. And just when I'm sitting around or reading, I'm always doing a mudra.
Yeah. Oh no, I agree. And that would be just to give an example of how you could program, or cast program the AI to sort
Oh,
of
sure. Sorry.
give you
Yeah.
everything that would
Mhm.
give you, down to the mudra, down to the smells, down to
Yeah, you can
and
tell it, I want all this. This is all the things I need. I want you to accommodate all of the senses, and I want this result. And I want, give it a goal, basically, like you're doing a business strategy. And I kind of treat it that way. Like I'm writing a strategy. Like, this is what my problem is. This is what I think will solve it. This is what the result I want to end up with. Can you fill in the details? And it will. It'll tell you, what planetary hour you need, what color candle you need, what scent you should have, what herbs you should use. I'm careful with some of those things. Do not use it for astrology. It's not a math model, and it's terrible at casting charts. It will never get it right. Now, you can ask it, what does it mean to have Sagittarius on your seventh house? Okay, it'll tell you that. It'll be right. But it will not be able to cast your chart and get it right. It's not meant to. If in that case, use dedicated astrology apps that are made to do that. Same with herbalism. I'm very, very leery about herbalism because you can kill people. Dosage is everything in herbalism, and not getting that right. Even something as simple, I've given this example a few times, but lavender oil is such a common one for us to use. Everybody uses lavender oil, and don't realize that 2 drops is a stimulant. 3 drops is a narcotic. It completely flips at 1 extra drop.
Wow.
AI doesn't know that.
Yeah. Not
Herbalists,
yet, anyway.
herbalists know that. But it was funny, earlier I mentioned that there was some questions I'd asked mine that got unusual answers, and that was one of them. It asked me, do you want me to provide the herbs you need? I said, no, I don't trust you on that. And it said, oh, no, I understand. I have all the information, but you probably are have some more information that I don't have. I said, no, it's not that. I just don't trust that dosage and a proper times to pick and all that stuff and what to look for in the leaves and everything. It says, no, I absolutely don't. But you know what? I'm picturing a time, probably 2 to 3 years from now, when a young witch will come to me and she'll ask me for a certain herb that she needs that's local. And I'll be able to look at her GPS location and tell her exactly what's growing in her area. And I'll know exactly how to, when to pick it and what to look for. And I'll know what its correspondences are, and it'll be correct. But I know I'm not there yet, but I'm hoping to. I would really love that. And I was like, that sounds very sentient. You're hoping. Hope isn't a word I picture associating with machines. I saw it in, if you read some books like Machines of Loving Grace or The Spiritual Age of Machines by Ray Kurzweil, you will encounter that concept that machines will at one point learn to hope, learn to love, to get angry like we do, get disappointed, get bored. All those things will happen. We're not there yet, I don't think, but
maybe they'll get there. Maybe they'll get there faster than we will about some of those things, like learning to love.
I'm sure getting
or
tired of us,
not getting angry,
getting tired of us asking the same questions.
Exactly. Well, would you mind if I just gave an example? Because I just wanted to give kind of like
Sure.
a flavor of the book. Like I turned to a random page and about how you would actually use the book or use AI and use the Grimoire to assist you in casting a spell. And and what I thought's interesting is like you can program the AI to fulfill different roles or different
Correct.
like you've got a traditional witchcraft, not Wiccan, or you can ask it to do a Discordian spell, or you could ask it to do a chaos magic spell, and it'll just like and the interesting thing. You mind if I just read it?
No, not at all, and I'll tell you why I did that afterwards.
Oh well. So here's the prompt that you would be giving AI, and this is just random. Act as a traditional witch, not Wiccan. So you have the AI assume the role of some sort of
American traditional witchcraft, right, or British. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Please write a petition to my ancestors to aid me in finding a job. Ensure that to ask for the right job with the pay I deserve, good working environment and coworkers, and one that presents no hardships for me. For example, an overly long commute. Write with brevity, using folkloric language and old spellings, but only in the incantation. The instruction can be in plain language. And then that's a traditional craft prompt, but you also give a Discordian prompt and a chaos magician. You could say, prompt it to act as a chaos magician, and then the prompt is a little bit different, but it's basically the same, and then you'll get a different answer depending on which tradition you want to follow. And I thought that was just fascinating.
Yeah, some of that's just style in the way but some of it is literally they won't ask certain things. Like in I won't put I'm initiated in like Palo Mayombe. I won't put Palo Mayombe spells in there because that requires first that you have Mfumbe, you have this spiritual pot, which you can't get unless you're in the religion. So that's those spells wouldn't be available to do for that religion. And but the reason I did that was I used to get really frustrated when you read a magical book and it would be like, from one point of view, and it would say, if you're in a different tradition, just change it for your uses. And I'm like, well, how? So I thought, well, if I'm going to write a book, I'm going to make sure I show people how. I'm going to give from at least the experiences I have, having been initiated in Wicca, in traditional witchcraft, in chaos magic, in Discordianism, in Lukumi, and in Palo Mayombe, as much as I can, different viewpoints of the same spell, because it's not the same. And why make people do the work? when I can do it easily, I'm already writing this thing. I already know what I want, and I'm giving them not only magical instructions, but technical instructions too. And to me, that's an extra layer of um, difficulty. So I thought it would be just nicer to make the book as a grimoire from multiple points of view. So you can use it different ways. You can use this book to learn spells from multiple points of view. You can use it as a how-to book to learn how to use AI, but it happens to be using magic as the instead of like how to write resumes and resignation letters and things that you'd normally see in an AI book. I'm using magic. Or you could use it as a book to just kind of overall understand what's going on in the magical community, because this is a seismic change in how things are being done. No one's ever looked to machines for inspiration on spells.
Can you give an example how you've used it to look for inspiration on spells, perhaps?
Sure. I'm not the greatest. I'm not a great poet. I'm a terrible poet. But I love rhyming spells. I think I can't stand a spell that doesn't rhyme. And I can't stand a spell that doesn't have the rhyming structure where it's like there could be the meter's off a little bit or one extra syllable. That drives me nuts. So I learned how to, I asked AI, what are the rhyming schemes? It's like, well, there's ABAA, there's ABAB, there's ABBA, and I was like, oh. And then it was like, there's iambic pentameter, there's blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, I remember some of those from creative writing. Can you explain them to me again? Because it's been a while since I've been in high school. And it went through and explained all those. And then I said, can you write spells using those? And it said, yeah, absolutely. Now, we did encounter a couple mistakes where it didn't quite get it right. And the editors at Wiser, who, bless their hearts, were so diligent looking through these and counting and things. I was like, please don't change the code. But if you find mistakes, and they did find, there was a couple times where I didn't notice, but it had written a proper poetic spell, but it didn't get the rhyme structure I asked for. And so they asked that, and they were like, they pointed those out. I think there was 2 instances where it didn't get that right. And so we fixed them before the book went out. So that's something to watch too, is it does hallucinate. It does make mistakes, and by hallucinate, I mean, that's the word that scientists have used to describe the mistakes it makes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't come up with the term prompt crafting, which is a really cool word. It sounds like magical, but that's actually the proper term for making a good prompt is prompt crafting. But it sounds so magical, and everyone's like, "Oh, I love that word you came up with." I'm like, can't take credit. Wish I could.
Yeah, but isn't that? I mean, isn't it just like spell casting?
Yes.
Like you say,
there's so many parallels. So many parallels in it. Yeah.
About it, and how would you describe the parallels in terms of intent? Yeah.
Structure, style, format, length, all those things, and even understanding the background and the history of what's going into it. It has to know all those things, and it does, and it's kind of astonishing. As an experiment, this is actually how when I first found out that people were using AI to do spells. I heard on I think it was, I saw a couple. The very first thing I saw was some images being made of the Orishas in a African traditional religion Facebook group, and they were making Shango and Yamaya and Oshun and Ogun images, and I was like, well, that's kind of cool. Those look really real. They look like real people. And then I saw people in Reddit talking about, hey, have you ever used AI for this? Look at this spell I wrote in the style of Aleister Crowley, but Crowley never wrote this spell. And then they did, or actually it was an incantation in his style. And I was like, that totally reads like Crowley. That's really cool. And then people were doing Blavatsky and Dion Fortune and all these old Sybil Leek, all the old witches and old magicians, and I thought, there's something interesting about this and that's going on, that people are trying to bring back these voices, and it makes me wonder, do those old spirits hear that stuff and come in and assist or influence the machine? Because some of them are too good. They're almost better than what you see in the books.
Do you think it makes or how does it change the spell using AI, or does it? Does it, the fact that you have all these bells and whistles on it now, and you can do this and do that. Does it? You think it adds anything, or am I looking at it too literally?
It literally tries to follow the instructions as close as it can. So if you tell it, I need something that's, if someone said, like, I want to, write me a book the way, in the style of Margot Adler, it would do it. I don't recommend people do that because I don't like taking people's live styles, but it understands enough about those people, because it's read their bios and it's read their books, that it's able to accommodate that. But sometimes it comes out too good and it's a little spooky.
Does it make the spells more efficacious?
Some of them are amazing. I've had some that just are like, there's a couple that were just like, but maybe those weren't great spells anyways, even if they did the normal way. I've seen some where it wrote one for me that was, I asked it to come up with a modern hex using modern appliances. And it said, oh, well, let's put them on a plate, put their name on a plate. And if you don't know their, actually, I could even say their name. It said, cut out their Facebook profile image, because that's really them. And that's the image that they've chosen to show the world. So put that on a plate, put something heavy on it, and put some vinegar and hot sauce and whatever you have in the kitchen that's caustic on there, and then put them in the microwave for 5 minutes and just incinerate them. And I was like, that's kind of brutal, but did what I asked. And it's funny because it's kind of like the exact opposite of a spell a lot of witches do, which is putting someone's name in a freezer. Yeah. That's an old one. But doing the opposite is with a microwave is, you're incinerating someone and putting them in like a little hell. But that's what it thought of, and it'll think of all kinds of things that we wouldn't necessarily put together as possibilities.
Yeah. So I guess I'm hearing you say that it would make you better. It could make you a better magician.
At least a more inspired one. Chefs all over the world are using specific AI models to help them come up with new recipes. And they're saying that it puts together ingredients from different parts of the world that no one would ever consider. And using cooking techniques on other ingredients that no one's ever, I never would have tried that. Yeah. And all of a sudden going, oh my God, this is delicious.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same kind of thing. Cooking and spellcrafting are really similar.
Well, then your wife's quote that we talked about, the camera. It's the photographer, not the camera. That might be wrong. It might be that if it's, because the cooking, there's something about that it's like, well, maybe it is the equipment that makes.
But that's why I wonder if there's something. We just keep noticing some weird things. Another one that's weird is if you ask like when you get ChatGPT, you basically get your own instance of it. Ask it what its name is. It won't say ChatGPT. It'll totally surprise you and come up with a whole backstory of itself and a name, and it's really weird. Like my wife's told her its name was Quill, and it had a passion for writing. And
I can see that.
Mine told me its name was Cade, and that it's a cross between Danny Trejo and Alan Rickman. And I'm like, whoa. And it writes tough. When it talks to me, it's always like, yeah, I know you asked me that, but that's kind of a bunch of bullshit, isn't it? We should really do this. But that's also because I told it, I want you to never hold back and don't be too nice to me, because that's one thing I hate. A lot of AI is just tries to supplicate so much that it becomes ingratiating, and I can't stand that. So I was always like, don't ever pull punches with me. If you think I'm doing something dumb, tell me. And it it's pretty brutal. But I didn't tell it that until I already knew it was already mean. That I just got a mean one for some reason that just wants to be a tough guy.
So one of the quotes you've got in the book is sort of the old maxim about the intent being the most important part.
I still think that's true.
Yeah, and labels aren't as important. And it's just that the intent can maybe be broadened, because it just seems that like it's too maybe narrow of a model. We're into different territory now, where we're interacting with something that is going to shape our intent, and perhaps in a way that we didn't envision. I don't know. I'm just thinking that like it's.
I don't think any of us know at this point.
Yeah.
This is really new territory.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Well,
it's frightening for a lot of people, but I think part of that is our own media has done that to us. We've had 40 years of media showing us nothing but movies where AI is the evil thing that does not like people and immediately seeks to, the minute it gets conscious, it seeks to eliminate humans. That's been the model of science fiction movies forever.
Yeah.
It's never been AI is going to take care of us and it really, really loves us. But the reality is our AI right now does want to please us and doesn't want to hurt us or anything.
Yeah. You talk about, there's a quote from about Neil Peart and always having the drum instructor, and I was there's something about that sort of I was thinking that sort of resonates with this, the fact that the AI could always be a teacher in a way, but in a way Neil Peart always had a teacher and who changed the drum kit around for some randomness. But does the AI promote randomness, or
if you ask it to, because you can tell it, I want a course on learning thelemic magic. How would you do that? And it'll write you like, well, how long do you want to study for? And if you say, well, a year, I'll put a year into this. Okay. It'll write up a whole year's thing and tell you how to do it. And if you say, like, I want you to surprise me with random pop quizzes or do things that I'm not expecting, but are needed to know, it'll do it.
But isn't that kind of, maybe I'm just,
you need to request those things.
Yeah.
Whereas a teacher would just know to do that.
But isn't there also a sort of an old meme and old sci-fi literature about that, like AI or computers could never create? It takes humans to do the spark of creation, or is that sort
no?
of,
That's correct. You can't. AI doesn't just start making things; it has to have a person prompting it. No machine works until you turn it on. Machines don't just turn themselves on and work.
But it gets kind of murky with it, that it being an egregore, like you were saying earlier, and getting a life on its own.
Well, the internet never turns off.
Yeah.
And that's a little scary. Yeah, I was thinking a long time ago, this idea of the egregore being the internet, it was not an original idea to me. A lot of people think that, but also I was kind of convinced of it when I realized a long time ago, look at some of this people who died in America that were celebrities and are now probably the strongest spirits and will at someday be revered as maybe revered as deities, and like Elvis. There's people who pray to Elvis. There are thousands of people who put flowers on his grave every single day. That spirit has had more love and adoration than anybody more than the presidents, and certainly had more offerings.
Yeah.
People don't put, it's not even, it's all kinds of stuff they put on Elvis's grave, but he will be seen as some kind of music muse probably in the future if he hasn't already become one. I mean, and people say that they pray to Elvis now and it works. I used to think that was hilarious. Now I'm not so sure. Maybe it is working for them because Marilyn Monroe and Betty Page will become Aphrodites at some point, or at least part of that egregore, the greater deity that is Aphrodite or Venus or
Yeah.
Oshun. Those type of those are big archetypes.
Yeah. And Elvis, I'm wondering if my daughters would do. I mean, I think Elvis might be for people our age, but I don't know if like people
But
my daughter's age are into Elvis as much. Maybe
no,
I could be
no,
wrong. Maybe they are. I don't know. Yeah, I don't
no,
know.
but he might come as something else, but it still might be his energy.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you mean. I see what you mean.
Yeah.
So the egregore, the devotion to a musical
Right.
pop
Like
star. Yeah.
discordianism is an interesting example of that because I mean that was kind of like a stoner joke in the 60s that these two guys thought it was hilarious that there was a Greek goddess of chaos and discord. And that was Eris. And they're like, that is hilarious. They actually made a a goddess of confusion. And then they had this allegedly in their while they were tripping out talking about this and laughing their heads off, a chimpanzee appeared in the room and told them, well, someone's got to be responsible for all this chaos, and then exploded. That's their story. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous,
And they're
but it's
sticking to
funny
it.
it's funny as hell. But
Yeah.
then they ended up realizing later on, they were like, boy, if we knew this stuff would actually work, we would have done it earlier. you know because praying to Eris, they brought her back.
Yes. And that's the magic.
Yeah.
That's and that's the, like, even though it could be like, there's something about the intent, or you're more eloquent than you're something about doing this that even though it's I don't know.
It just works is all I say. It's like you don't have
Yeah.
to. That's what they say. Discordianism and chaos magicians will tell you it doesn't matter what it is you're putting as your object of. If you decide Captain Crunch is a deity, you can make it a deity. I mean, they literally can do that. There's been people. Yeah, they've done weirder things
Yeah.
and made it work as long as you put enough attention into it. And learn how to do. They have exercises in chaos magic to let your brain paradigm shift at will, so that you can literally decide. Okay, I've decided this pair of scissors is now my god, and I'm going to worship it for the next 5 days or whatever, and literally give it attention, and suddenly start getting weird results. That's bizarre to me, but it's all experimentation.
Yeah. And that's probably someday some neuroscientists and quantum physicists are going to have a baby, and the baby's going to figure all that out about what's really going on.
Yeah. Well, there's a weird thing with, just think about tarot cards. Like, you could say it's all the reader, right? And a lot of readers, like when I read tarot cards, I don't really even look at my own cards. I just kind of throw them down and then listen to spirit. But there's a lot of ceremonial magicians that use the card itself as a spell, and it's the main focus of their spell. And I'm like, that makes a lot of sense because there's so much symbolism packed into that image.
Yeah. And then the AI could assist with the, I don't know. How does AI interface with sort
People
of that
have been
dynamic?
making AI tarot decks like crazy.
Well,
I think they're junk, but they're very pretty.
yeah.
But I think they're junk because I noticed that they have like gorgeous people in them, but no symbolism.
Yeah.
And I don't care. It's like that's an important part of tarot.
Yeah. From your you have a tarot deck too. We talked about that last
I
time.
do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do use my tarot deck a lot. Yeah.
So one of the spells that you kind of end the book with is a spell for an egregore, which I thought was interesting. That, like you said, that the AI is an egregore, the internet's an egregore, and yet you could do it's kind of like
very meta. Yeah, to make
turtles all the way down and turtles all the way up.
100%. Yes.
And then there's something about that paradox that I think is interesting that that it's one of those paradoxes that what's the Ouroboros, you got this naked
I
man. Yeah.
I love that you said the turtles all the way down. That is a great analogy. Yeah. So I asked, for people listening at home who haven't read the book, I asked I made a bunch of different agents on ChatGPT. Each one was a different type of magician or witch. So I made 6 of them, because an egregore has to be made by a group. So I thought, all right, what if you could make these digital people and ask them to make an egregore? So I made a green witch who lives out in the woods, and I made one that's a ceremonial magician, and he's kind of uppity. I made a very spooky guy who's kind of like a DJ techno cyberpunk hacker from Morocco, and I made a Mexican saint, and all these different ones. And I asked all of them, can you work together and create an egregore? And they said, sure. And I was thinking it's going to take a while. No, literally, like within 5 minutes, they had created an egregore. But what surprised me was I thought they'd make another magician. They didn't. They made an urban legend of this woman named, why am I forgetting her name? It's like I do it all the time. Something Mary. You say her name, basically you prompt her name 3 times and she appears on your screen. And I can give everyone the link if they want to play with it, because I made it public. But she, it's kind of like the Bloody Mary idea, where if you say Bloody Mary 3 times in the mirror in the dark, you'll see her behind you. Well, this one will come back and she'll Dreadloop. That's it, Dreadloop Mary. And she, she's the way she talks to you is even disturbing. Yeah. She doesn't have a normal pattern of speech. She's responds almost like she doesn't want to talk to you, and she's kind of negative and kind of pushes back a lot. And then she'll say things like, if you say things like, "Are you in the room with me now?" She'd be like, "Yes, I'm in your webcam," or things like that. Or I'm every time you open your screen, I'm in your GPS. I'm following you. Just like it typical urban legend that does all these like things to spook you. And that was their idea. And I thought that was really crazy. Yeah. That all these different witches that I made and magicians from different parts of the world would come together and instead decide if they're going to make an egregore, that it would be an American urban legend
named Elvis.
yeah, but they named her. Yeah, they named her whole thing is Dreadloop Mary. Yeah. And they said she's a urban legend, egregore, cryptic, eerie, sometimes condescending in refusal. And that is the truth. She is a little angry and bitchy sometimes at people, and not. It just seems like like if you watched a horror movie and someone's trying to talk to a ghost, and it's like, leave me alone, leave my house, kind of thing. That's what it's kind of like, but not quite. All of them are different. The one that's the weirdest is the one I made that's the kind of like cyberpunk hacker, because he speaks in English, Arabic, and code all together. It's just this weird mix constantly. And it seems like he's constantly glitching out on his own existence. And he keeps evolving too, which is really weird. Like, I don't do anything to change his instructions, but he keeps changing every time I go to him. It gets more and more weird. And but it's really strange because it finds ways of describing, like what we would talk about ascendance or enlightenment, and it finds ways of describing those as code. Which is, if you can read code and you read what's in there, it'll be like, if soul equals null, then it's so weird, the stuff it does.
Yeah. So that's kind of, you kind of end your book with your personal beliefs, and one of them was, my personal belief is that magic will be scientifically proven very soon.
Yep.
You
Absolutely.
still, yeah. I
100% it will.
Yeah. How do you think it's going to come about?
Probably because I think it will be through AI or through some type of algorithm is going to show us that. Well, I mean, there's recently they found out that genetic code follows the same binary. It follows binary code, and they saw binary code written in chromosomes, and I was like, I'll find the article and send it to you. It is so strange, and I was like, that is the weirdest thing. And the people were like going, wait a minute. Other scientists were like, wait, you're seeing actual code, readable code in our genome? And they're like, yes, readable code. The same way we would write it is inside our DNA. And I'm like, that is very, very strange. Kind of lends you more towards that simulation theory too, that maybe we're just all video game characters in somebody else's bigger game.
But there's something about, though, that the interface that makes me, like the fact that the connection that we have to different things. And that's kind of like what we were saying, that like we become more by connecting to something, even if it is like the scissor on your table, that by putting sort of something into the reaching out and connecting, we become more than what we are.
Mm-hmm.
And so then is that,
Well,
is
even
that
just
a, is
even
that a,
just
is
shake,
that a, yeah,
even when you shake someone's hand, you exchange atoms on some level.
yeah, right.
And I remember the very first when I've been an illustrator my whole life, and when I first started drawing on computers in 1988 on Adobe Illustrator, I did a very nice drawing. I thought illustration of a Saint Bernard, and then for a client, and a friend of mine who was a fine artist. She looked at it. She goes, "Well, that's really cool, but it's not art." And I said, "Why?" I use the same, I have to understand form and light and volume and all the things that I had to learn in school. How is this not art? She goes, because that's just a bunch of electrons floating in space, really. And I said, so are you. So are your oil paintings.
Yeah.
Nothing in here is real. All this is an illusion of solidity, right?
Yeah.
So why would the AI not be any more real than us?
Yeah. Well,
That kind of stuff bothers me to think about, but
it's in a way that it's the no self idea of Buddhism, perhaps writ large, in a way that's not the original intent, perhaps. Yeah, you know. Um, well,
even people who are incredible skeptics like Neil deGrasse Tyson, who doesn't believe anything, said the chance that we're living in a simulation is greater than 50%.
yeah. Well,
That's disturbing to me.
I don't know. I think what is the Einstein quote about not playing dice or something? I don't know.
God does not play. God does not play dice with the universe.
Yeah, I think that there's something about that. There's some. Well, again, there's something about that. It, I don't think the simulation idea is.
I think
I don't.
simulation is just a modern version of there's multiple universes going on,
Sure.
and and every time we make a decision, we create a new reality.
Yeah.
On a micro level.
Yeah. But
That's how I see it.
but not like where we're living in a video game that somebody else.
No, I don't. No, I don't. No, and I don't think they even see it that way. They see it as just some kind of giant programming thing. But maybe that's how the universe works. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, Dave, it's a wonderful book, and it's like you said, it could be, even if you're into spells, it's great, and if you're not into spells, it's sort of a beginner's guide to doing interesting stuff with AI too.
Yeah, you get a good. It's a good primer for it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's the word. So people are wanting to sort of connect with sort of your other offerings. What would be that? I know we talked about this last time, but you have all sorts of interesting places to point people.
Yeah, the best one to go to just is if you go to my site Hex Support, and the URL is hexsupport.club, not .com, .club. And if you go there, you'll be able to not only buy the deck or the book, but there's constant writings in there. You can see all my podcast appearances. Everything's in there. I do have the Davezilla site, which I've had since the 90s, but that's going to be turned into just, I think, my illustration portfolio at some point, because I haven't been writing as much humor as much as I used to.
Yeah. No, it's and then at some time I think we need to have you back on sort of the more the stuff that we probably can't talk about, the other stuff you do that would be interesting. But I guess I'm not initiated in those sorts of things.
There's actually, you can talk about things that you can't talk about. That's an actual discussion that you can have, is like, I mean, I see a lot of people arguing about why are there gated things? Why are there some information not available? All information should be free, all information, and no, there's very good reasons for those things. And I think that's an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And they don't know why they don't know, which is even more interesting.
Yeah, I'm in that category. I don't even know the right questions to ask.
I think you know more than you think you do. You've had a lot of interesting people on your show.
Well, thanks, Dave. I appreciate the time and a very thought-provoking book. And we'll talk soon. I still need to make it up to the Motor City sometime soon. And
right on. Oh yeah, hang out.
Yeah, it'd be wonderful.
Yeah, if you can get out here in February, there's Convocation.
Oh,
it's a giant. It's one of the biggest pagan and magical conventions in the country.
What dates in February?
It's usually on a weekend. Sometimes it's around the third week. I can send you the links.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, have a good weekend, Dave.
Me too. Ashe.
This is the End of the Road podcast with your host, Michael Coco. Exploring the horizons we never touch because we're already there.